Welcome to Between Two Pastries. This is Nicole.
Hey everyone, it's Annie.
Welcome, everybody, today to part two of our January pod series on New Year's resolutions, dumb things people do in the beginning of the year, just simply because it's the beginning of the year. We just had our lady perspective a couple weeks ago, and now we're honing in on the male perspective on all things New Year's. So,
Which I'm really looking
welcome.
forward to.
Yes, I am too, actually. So, welcome our guests, Thetis and
Thaddeus.
Scott. I will have you guys introduce yourself.
Thaddeus, go for it.
I'm Thaddeus Nelson. I don't know, I'm a runner, which is where I come, I guess, to the nutrition world and where I started listening to podcasts. I've met Annie a few times. Her husband, Brian, is my coach. And I actually think Nicole, my wife, Suzanne, might have worked with you for a while.
Yes, yes,
Expected. So she's spending a lot of time focused on that.
yes.
You're expecting too.
Uh,
That's awesome. Congratulations again. Very cool. Scott, who are you?
All right, I'm Scotty Kummer. I'm a runner podcaster from Chicago, originally from Milwaukee, and I've had Brian and Annie on my show, and Brian's also been on my record show. So I know
Love
them from the
it.
running world really well. Read the book. A big fan of the show. Listened to all the episodes. So looking forward
Oh,
to being told all the things that I'm doing wrong by you guys.
no.
Well, and
Well,
I
we
just I
appreciate
just
your
want to
support.
mention really quick, Scott, your new podcast is really, really cool. Like Brian really talks highly of it, and I'm kind of like, that's so crazy and weird. Like hours about music, about one album, and
That's awesome.
and
That's
it was like
awesome.
when Brian talked about it, I was like, oh, okay, that actually like that sounds like something like that would really catch a lot of people's attention to like go in depth on music and songs. You know what I mean? That's really cool. So
Well, it's called. I've got that on vinyl, and it's like a nerdy book club for record lovers.
yes.
So.
Sweet.
it's great if you have like 4 hours to kill.
I love that. And
Yeah.
runners do. So that's awesome. And we'll make sure that we put the link to that
Yeah.
podcast too for you,
Yeah. It's
Scott.
pretty cool.
So yeah, that's awesome. So what brings us all together today is the new year. And we're opening it up, talking about like, what are some things that we've done in the past? How, like, what do your brains do when it comes down to New Year's? Like, where do you go? You know what I mean? Like, are you guys triggered by the new year? Do you guys try to set things for yourselves? Um, what are some things that you kind of have maybe done for yourself in the past? And really what we're kind of talking about, you can talk about anything truly, but more curious around what you've done for yourself or what you think you've done for yourself in terms of health, right? Because health is always defined by everybody so differently, and we'll probably get your definitions as well. So anyway,
Mhm.
any
Yeah.
anyone who wants to open that up, go for it.
I'll start with Thaddeus. Thaddeus, you go ahead.
So
So at the New Year's, my I know it's like the big resolution time of year and uh, decide what you're going to do. I kind of look at it as maybe finding goals you want to accomplish, and I've always been I try to be forgiving with myself and know I won't hit them all. But sometimes it's things like finish X number of knitting projects this year, or go back to this thing I meant to do and finish that. I try not to hold it to sort of the traditional resolution of you need to improve or fix this, which I think is one of the things I've always loved about your resolution shows. Is I think it's a little more like that than the standard let's lose 50 pounds or go on a crazy diet sort of perspective. And then I'll try to, as far as fitness, I will there try to make a plan for what I'm going to run that year, or if I want to, readdress some training, something I'll try. I do pick that arbitrary day to think about a lot of that. And
mhm.
unfortunately now, a lot of times, if you want to do something the next year, you need to sign up or think about doing
Yeah,
it now because
sure.
everything books out.
Yeah.
So I'll usually think about, oh, I want to go run these races, and I'll make it to about July actually doing that. And then the second part of the year, I'll be like, whatever. That has been my fall this year, was just very few of the things I meant to do as far as running actually got onto the schedule and booked and paid for.
So,
Thaddeus, you used a
no,
really
yeah.
good word. You used reassess, which I thought was really
Yeah.
cool. And although it's the new year, you know, as it relates to athletics, at least in the 2020s, you do have to sign up and like be aware of things a year, even 2 years in advance for many things, as opposed to even 5 years ago, where you could hit January and be like, I'm going to do Black Canyon in February. And you can't do that anymore. So yeah, you raise a really good point in that way, and I don't find that, you know, I don't see that's disordered in any way, or like crazy and you've lost your marbles. But you use that word reassess, which was a really great word to use, even though, yeah, you slap the date on it and everything. It's a very powerful word. Nicole, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you talked about like, July, then you're like, "Bleh," So like what happens to you when and I think this is just a point I want to bring up with people. So like when you're like, oh, July, everything just kind of you're like, whatever. What is that for you? Like, because I think this is just true for people, and I think people can really relate where they have like these, and this is the whole point of it, right? They have these grandiose, ideas and things like that. And I'm not saying that there's anything negative about that, right? But you come to July, and what I'm also hearing is that you might be fatigued.
Yeah, it's not necessarily even, physical exhaustion. It's, oh, we're going to plan another trip. So, if you're going to go somewhere, um, what does the travel look like? Let's book places. Um, Up until recently, we also had a cat and kidney failure. So we had a cat who traveled with us. So, what does
Oh,
that look like? Um, and at some point, it's like, oh, do I really want to sign up for this? And if I go do this race, I don't know the weather. Is it going to freeze I'm going to freeze that weekend. Would I rather just sit home? Um, it also is just all the other things going on in life. Once I hit the fall semester, it's really busy at my jobs. So at some point, it's like, oh, I would really love to be out this weekend at an event or seeing friends, but I have a pile of papers to grade, and
yeah.
they're on their own.
Yeah, yeah. And so, truly life just happens. But what I love is, that you're aware of that, right? And you're like, okay, wait a minute, priorities are shifting, and not only that, but capacity, capacity gets smaller, to do all that planning and adjusting and things like that. So yeah, totally.
Have you ever engaged that in diet culture around the new year? Historically, like even,
Um,
I mean, teens, 20s, 30s, all of the above.
so not specifically, I do think you feel a pressure when you get to the new year, and more so today than probably when I was in my 20s or even 30s, because of Facebook, Instagram, whatever the kids are using today that I'm not on because I'm too old. Um, Everybody's doing it at that point of the year. Uh, all the influencers are coming out with, this is what you need to do starting January 1st. Uh, Being in an office environment, it is
Mhm.
at times kind of toxic around the office. Even today, going into Thanksgiving weekend, we're like, oh, do we bring in bagels today for everybody? And like, how many people out of our staff are actually going to eat one? So being around it, I think, is really something we all, to a degree, participate in because it is our culture. Certainly on the running world, on top of that, you get everybody's annual feedback of, look, I ran 5,000 miles this year. What did you do? And did you live up to it? Are you enough of a runner if you just went out there every week and had fun, or you got injured and took a month off, and did those things, seeing everything else. As far as dieting, I don't know if I ever personally was, um, at a point where I did like a serious diet. If anything, going up until some point in my 30s, I was very much, and I don't, want to frame this as judgmentally, but I was overweight. I was, like go up the stairs, get winded,
Mm.
unhealthy, unactive, uh, partly just who I was, partly managing graduate school. Uh, and so I was not even thinking about that at that point. And it probably wasn't until I got into running that I was sort of surrounded by that, which is about also, the time where social media became more common.
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel like it's different for guys. That's the message so far is there's a different belief system or a different pattern of beliefs, a different we've kind of talked about this before where the rules and the belief subset look a little bit different. And that's the vibe
Mhm.
I'm feeling so far. And I want to shift
Yeah.
over to Scott with the same set of questions as to what your experience has been historically, past, present, current, whatever, as it relates to what a New Year's resolutions look like, specific to food, nutrition, exercise, but also anything else as well.
Yeah. Well, I think that hit the issue that kind of precedes this, and that's the measuring at the end of the year. That I think is kind of like an engine for the change that happens at the beginning of the year. A lot of people start reflecting because now I see Annie ran 2,000 miles and Nicole read 62 books and
Yeah.
Thad knitted 4 sweaters. And like everyone's
Right.
kind of like giving you the list of all the stuff that they did, and
Yeah.
oh, I didn't have as good a year as I thought I was going to have, but I did like 700% more than you did of anything,
Oh.
and there's a lot of that at the end of the year that I think ramps up a lot of people's anxiety and gets them thinking about, did I run enough? Did I, do all the things that
Mm.
I could?
Am I enough?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, and,
Am I enough?
and I think that's a huge issue at the end of the year. And then, the kind of like the second part of that is okay, now you have a new chance. It's the new year. And, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I've quit drugs. I've quit alcohol. I've quit smoking. I've done a lot of things, in terms of big changes in my life.
Mhm.
And one of the things in recovery we talk about a lot is that like every day's New Year's Day. You have a chance
Yeah.
every day to just start completely over. And that's not to say that you should just blow off tomorrow, or that New Year's Eve isn't an opportunity, but it's about not being discouraged, and that you can do that every single year. Now for me this year I have a whole different set of issues because I have a bad injury, and for the first time in
Mm.
25 years I can't run at all, and I may not
Oh.
run at all next year at all too. So I have a whole host of issues on my plate that I've never had to deal with. Thank God I have a life that is separate from running, and things that I can
Yeah.
find joy in. And I don't just define myself as a runner, but it's going to be hard, and it's hard from a nutrition standpoint, it's hard from an
Mhm.
activity standpoint, it's hard from a
Mhm.
weight loss standpoint. And again, the one thing that I talked to the surgeon about and said, is there anything that I can do to help? Because obviously I can't. In the past you've always had how much you eat, how much you exercise, maybe what you eat that you could control, and I could just push my foot on the pedal, maybe run more,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
Now all it is diet and nutrition. I don't have a lot of options in fitness. So one of
Oh.
the things he said is, as a big guy in a bad knee, if you could lose some weight, that would help all the weight you lose. So that's something that I'm thinking about, and I'm also having to be a little bit more conscious about what I eat, from a guy that ran 50 miles, 60 miles a week to a guy that runs 0 miles a week.
Yeah.
It's a huge change.
Yeah.
It's been about a month and a half since I've been running. So I'm doing some things differently in terms of nutrition. I'm doing a lot of things different in terms of fitness and exercise. But and it also is a time to reflect and look at what is next year going to look like without those things. It's going to be a very different year.
Mm.
I'm maybe recovering from a total knee replacement for a period of
Mm.
time. So it's there's a lot of things to think about.
That is a lot to think
Yeah.
about. And I mean, are you able to like do any activity at all? Like
Yeah, I can.
just thinking from like a self-care stress standpoint.
Right.
Yeah, I can bike. I can swim. I can do
Okay.
things that I could do exercise that doesn't involve, weight bearing on my leg.
Impact.
I can wear this brace and I can walk, regularly. I walked 2.5 miles this morning. I'm going to walk 2.5 miles this afternoon. So, I mean, I'm getting
Oh,
some exercise in and things like that.
yeah.
Not gloom and doom, but at the same time,
It's
it's not the
different.
same as ripping out a 10-mile run tomorrow morning,
Right.
So
Right. Yeah, it's totally different. And
Yeah.
you have set yourself up, and I know Thad, you've participated in this too, like the Thanksgiving run that you would typically have. You have your races and stuff like that, which doesn't have to change, but you're in a community where it's all running. And when you're the one guy not running, it doesn't feel good, right? You're like, oh yeah, I had to go for a walk, or I had to go for a swim, or I'm just biking.
Right.
And then you have to explain why, or people don't always understand, or oh well, can't you run on trail even though because that's softer. And it's really
Right.
challenging to be in a community where you can't do what the community is doing.
well, and a
Mhm.
leader in the community.
Yeah, and a lead,
Yes.
yes,
A media
yes,
Yes.
personality.
Yep.
I have two
right.
running podcasts. I'm a race director. Like
Right.
my life kind of revolves around this. But
Hmm.
the great thing about our sport is that, you know, people don't look at it that way. Thad doesn't think any less of me when I show up he doesn't look at me and say that guy can't run. He's like, that
Can't
guy used to,
run.
so
Yeah.
but it is a challenge because I'm no longer the guy that's, tomorrow or Thursday we're doing our world's longest turkey trot for ALS from Chicago to Milwaukee, and I'm not going to run
Hmm.
1 foot of that event. And I've done it,
Yeah.
7 times.
Yeah,
So
forever. And it's
that's
amazing. That whole event is so cool. I mean, so you have to shift your perspective to I'm crew support and I'm in the car, or you're meeting and and that's really challenging for many reasons, but you've been running for so long and you have to shift that. And so as you look at a new year, it's kind of like everything is gray area. You don't know what there is. If I have a knee replacement, then this might happen. If I don't, then this might happen. Maybe I run, maybe I don't. Maybe I need a gym membership, maybe I don't. Maybe I'm that I think is what throws people into this like whirlwind
The
tornado,
unknown. Yeah.
the
The
unknown,
unknown.
right?
Naturally.
And
Yeah.
really, how do I log on Strava? I can't, or what do I do here? So it's really challenging, and people want to control their new year so much.
Yep.
And do you guys as males feel that level of control, or maybe that's more of a female thing? Any
Hmm.
perspective on that from either of you?
Well, I would just say that for me, the way that I feel that pressure, but I feel like I try to make a list of the things that I can control, and I try to work on those things, and I try to,
Hmm.
this may be a big recovery issue. I take the things that I can't control and I push
Right.
them aside. So for me,
Yep.
I can control what I eat and how I eat. I control how much I eat. I can control a little bit of the exercise part, and I
Mhm.
try to focus on that and ignore the rest.
Yeah, all the
Hmm.
chatter that goes on about telling you how you should eat and what you shouldn't and all the things, and focusing on what you know to be true, or who you're working with, or you know what I mean, the plan that you have in place. Because there is a lot of chatter out there. It's like, that you were saying with influencers and stuff, this time of year it ramps up. I mean, if you watch regular TV,
Awful.
there's commercials. Every commercial is, whatever diet, or join this gym and you get so much money off. And it's just it's challenging. There's a lot of,
Hmm.
stuff out there now, and on every platform that you can put your eyes on. So it becomes really challenging.
It does ramp up everywhere. And a lot of us too, in the next few weeks, we spend so much time with family that it's also them a lot of the time. It's their views or what they're doing, or
Yeah.
their critique of what's on the table for Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever. And oh, you can't eat that, or you should eat this, or all of that.
I feel like, did we just record a podcast about this?
We literally did. And
Like
that's a
deja vu.
holiday one. So that's coming out literally Monday.
Yeah, because that you raised such a good point. Over the next few weeks, you're with family you may
Yeah.
or may not see often or not. And the comments start
Crazy.
flying,
Just
even after
crazy.
the new year too. Well, what was your resolution? Why aren't you doing it? Have you, like, I mean,
Right.
where you legitimately have an aunt or an uncle who's like, oh, you failed at that already? You're
Yeah.
like, I'm sorry. When
Yeah.
again, life looks different every year, whether it be a
Hmm.
knee replacement, a baby coming, whatever it might be, changes within your household, whatever that looks like. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. I don't know if the audacity is too strong of a word, but the amount of comments you get from people at holiday functions is mind-blowing.
Yeah, it can be brutal.
And it can shape how your resolutions look or the pressure you feel. And Scott, I mean, you raised that good point about the end of the year really fuels the beginning of the year. And I had never really thought of it that way, but you're absolutely right. When you see everyone's 6 best or 9 best stories or photos or whatever it is, and then you've got, the Strava celebrations with who ran what mileage, and you're just like, but no one knows my story that, this happened to me,
Right,
or I was injured or had a baby or did this or had to
right.
stop or whatever medical things, and that's why my number is what it is, right?
I
And
feel like the answer to all that is to measure yourself against yourself and be
right,
generous, as
correct,
generous as you possibly can.
right, absolutely. And I think that's hard for people when we're sitting on social media platforms. I mean, at the end of the day, everything goes through social media, and it's challenging. But I also think, in addition to having grace for yourself and all of those things, to celebrate other people too, right?
Yeah.
I think we forget to do that as well. And it's okay to uplift other people and also be uplifted and not have the same numbers or the same, track record, whatever it might be. And that concept of I am enough essentially is super important. So I really like that point you raised. It's the end of the year that really captures what the beginning of the year is going to look like from a resolution standpoint and the type of resolutions that people make.
And even celebrate them for things that you can't do that you feel bad about. Like I can't be mad because Thad runs 800-mile races next year while I'm sitting on the shelf. Or if someone posts that they lost 100 pounds, don't attack them and say, oh well, you must have did something. Like be happy for them. Because sometimes I think that we project how we feel about ourselves onto other
Yep,
people, especially when they
yep.
achieve things. That definitely brings out that monster.
Absolutely. Do you feel like your experience with addiction therapy and like doing things to help addiction have helped that perspective of positivity?
Oh, 100%. I
Yeah.
mean, one of the cornerstones of recovery is acceptance,
Mhm.
and the way that you look at the world and realizing that there's
Yep.
certain things that you're powerless over. Those are all, I mean, but those are things that could help anyone. I mean, they're not
Right.
unique to recovery. I mean,
Right.
if you're, mad at the world all the time, sometimes it's not the world, you just have to, take a look at yourself and try to change your perspective.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Do you guys feel self-esteem plays a role in the type of resolutions that you've made over the years? Like as you look back 10, 20 years, do you see self-esteem playing a role in what you've chosen to do?
I don't know self-esteem specifically, but for me, a lot of it is I like feelings of accomplishment, which I think ties into that. And that could be, doing something new, finishing something. Uh, to me, it ties into self-esteem. Um, and I know I've done things for self-esteem. I just don't know if they tie directly to often the resolutions. I think for me, a lot of times it's goals that I want to hit those goals. I want to check it off, and know that I've done it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think for me, I've always felt that you can build self-esteem by doing esteemable acts. So if I feel bad about myself or my situation, sometimes doing something like just cleaning something or organizing
Yes.
something or answering the oldest email in my inbox. All
Yep.
kinds of little things that just build momentum, and that momentum builds self-esteem and makes you feel happy. Because a lot of times, if your self-esteem is low, sometimes it's just
Mhm.
you're just feeling bad about something instead of make yourself feel good. It's hard to feel bad about yourself when you're cleaning up your house, or when you clean out your car, or whatever it is that you do. Those things, they kind of put a smile on your face.
Yeah, you have to feel good, and you're starting kind of like at the grassroots of who you are to get there, right? But you're right. You raised a really good point. That's a good way to start that momentum for self-esteem to bigger things that you may want to accomplish. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and even just the theme of what all of you have been talking about today has to do with not only self-esteem, but self-worth, and again, being enough. And I think that that's what triggers the whole New Year's thing is that people continuously think they are not enough, they are not matching up, and that, their self-worth is based on how much they're doing or how much they're losing or, any of that stuff. And it's refreshing to hear both of you say that, your self-worth actually isn't all gummed up in what you are doing, and that you have different things that bring you joy and that fill your world. And that it isn't the one thing, or it isn't that you have to do X, Y, and Z. And if you don't, you're worthless kind of a thing. And so I think that that's just been really refreshing to hear. Scott, I also, yeah, I'm sorry, go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say, I think that things like the way I always look at it is things like running or things like podcasting or records or all that are places where I express my worth, not where I
Mhm.
find my,
There you
know.
go. Yep,
Yeah.
you got it.
That
You
that
got
other
it.
thing about disappointment, I mean, just think about New Year's Eve. I worked in bars and restaurants for years and years and years and years and
Oof.
years. Almost, 95% of the people that come home on New Year's Eve didn't have the night that they expected. Everybody gets
Yeah,
gussied up. They have high expectations. It's going to be, and it never is. It's you wake up on New Year's Day and you're the same person you were the day before.
of course. Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
100%.
yeah.
That's so funny. I mean, because in part one, I talked about the anxiety in my 20s about New Year's Eve leading to New Year's Day, and like midnight, you're still out. So
Hmm.
what happens between midnight and the next, when you wake the next morning and you've been out since 3 a.m., from midnight to 3 a.m., can you drink? Can you not drink? What are you eating? Like, how does your day look? Oh, now my first day of the new year, I'm hungover and that's not good. And then you've got
Hmm.
Aunt so-and-so's party. And do you know what I mean? Like that was an anxiety driver. And that ultimately, and I'll say it again from part one, the 31st and the first, or what is it, Tuesday to Wednesday or Wednesday to Thursday, whatever it is this
Right.
coming, it's the same Tuesday to
Yep.
Wednesday as
Yep.
every week of every year for the entirety of the calendar. So it's just, it's
That's a
silly.
two-way trap too, because the
Hmm.
first trap is, Thad, oh, I'll finally start to get serious about my running after the new year, which allows you to blow it off and kind of like rule out all the possibility in the promise of today that you could do it today. But you know what? I'm going to do it after the new year. And then when you wake up hungover, having ate the bad food and didn't run on New Year's Day, that
Mhm.
whole arbitrary day is gone. Well, you know what? I mean, I'm already hungover. Why am I going to start running today? And then it's
Right.
then it's Tuesday, and then it's Wednesday. And, it's like how many times I try to quit smoking on a Monday, and
Oh.
just once you blow it, then you can't quit smoking on a Tuesday. You can't quit on a Friday, and a Saturday, and that is a trap. So I mean, that New Year's Eve, it's
Oh,
it's
what
both,
happens? Like, how does
I
that
know.
happen for people? Because so many people are in that trap, or they've been in that trap before. This weird New Year's Monday
Yep.
weekend thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
What is
Yeah.
that? And where do we learn that from?
Hmm.
and like it's one of those things that I just I'm a really smart guy. I went to school
Hmm.
for 19 years. I quit a whole bunch of stuff. But you know what? Sometimes you just look down at the desk and you're just like, what happened? Oh, I had a plan. And now I'm eating, a whole, box of ding dongs on the day that I said I was going to start to eat right. Or now I spent the whole day on the couch watching TV. The one day I was going to start running, it's just there's just something it happens. Like sloth takes over. It's very weird.
I always
Yeah.
try to think my body must need it. I don't know if we want to call that an excuse, but that's how I've always thought. Like, if I'm missing a run, it's probably because I didn't sleep or I'm not, like
Yeah.
something is inadequate going on inside of me. And that's how it is. And that, again, you try to rationalize, well, that one run or that donut or whatever is not going to, break the bank at the end of the day.
Hmm.
That's
That's
kind of how I think about that.
that's how I drank
Yeah.
and did drugs for 20 years, though.
Yeah, right. Right.
Yeah,
Again, it's how do we, what is the real rational way of thinking about it
Yeah.
versus
That's a
right?
neurological question. I just wish somebody
Yeah.
would look into that, like
Hmm.
the science of addiction and judgment and things like that, impulse.
Impulse, right.
Impulse. Yeah,
Absolutely. Impulse
Maybe
is
exactly.
someday we'll learn there's like like ADHD and all that. Maybe we'll find there's like a impulse defect in some people's brains that prevents them from choosing correctly, when they know what the right decision is. There's some like blackout that happens or something. It's interesting.
Well, I
yeah.
mean, I think it is like, I mean, impulse is kind of addiction too. I mean, you're looking for that dopamine hit. You're looking for the hit, you're looking for the whatever that is, right? So it's all the same, put it into whatever it is you want. But yeah, it's interesting.
It's very interesting, and you see it in so many people, and you guys seem aware of your thoughts and feelings and actions, but there's a lot of people in the world who are totally oblivious to that way of thinking, that they're even
Yeah,
engaging in it, that it's
right,
even like a
right.
negative loop that they're in, whether
Hmm.
it be drug related, food related, gambling, shopping,
Hmm.
just a personality thing.
Yeah.
So many people have no idea that they're even existing in it. And would you guys say, like, as you've grown to know yourself more, when you see that in other people, it's very like, oh, I can't be around that? Or do you try to like get into their brain and let them know this?
I think it's really challenging at some points because you do see it, and um, when you're around it, it can be uncomfortable for you as well. But both sometimes you can't excuse yourself for it. I feel like a lot of times my office, there's a lot of really hard diet culture going on, and people
Mm.
who eat a couple M&Ms and they talk about how they failed their day,
Oh,
um, or things to that effect. And at the same time, you can't argue with people about it. It's very ingrained. It's very much what they've
mm.
taken away from probably social media today more than an actual doctor or their personal trainer who's telling them you need to avoid all carbs because you have high cholesterol and things like that. Um, and so you can't tell them different because they're not going to listen to you. But at the same time, you can't always remove yourself from it. And it is so many people
Yeah.
today, so many around us who um, do that. And I sometimes think, oh, it's because I'm in the running community, and so much of that crosses over into health and wellness and these sort of unsupported health and wellness things or these harmful self and wellness things. But it's there with everybody today.
Mm.
And I know at points for me, you know, I was probably pushing myself to run a lot more than I should have. And um, did I, enjoy what I was doing? Yes, but in the long run, it was probably not always the best decision.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it's something you end up, you're either going to figure it out for yourself or not. I don't think, most people are going to be able to convince you to change your mind on that unless there's, some level of respect for their knowledge or experience there.
Hmm.
For me, unless
Well,
it's something that I'm working on, I always think about that commercial with the people that turn into their parents. Like when I see it in other people, I just say, I'm not working on that problem right now. Like I can't manage them. And I just let them be them and just recognize that you have to live in a world with people that aren't doing, healthy things, and you can't fix them.
Yeah, who
Mhm.
are different from us or whatever it may be,
Yeah,
right or wrong, or agree or disagree or what have you. And yeah, 100%. It is challenging though when you're doing your thing and you're eating one way or exercising one way, and it's right for you, and you have these other people. And Thad, you mentioned like in an office, and I don't know, Scott, if
yeah.
you have this too within where you work and everything, where people are chattering about things that are so irrational, or that they're myths, or
Hmm.
they're harmful, or it's something that could really medically be a problem. And like like Scott, you said, just let it, they're doing their thing. But it's hard to ignore it, right? It's really, really challenging to not be like, that's not a good thing. Why do you
Yeah.
believe that? You found that on,
Yeah.
you know, so-and-so's website or whatever, and that I think can be more detrimental sometimes for people than actually setting resolutions to do, mind body exercise, weight stuff. You know what I mean? Sometimes that chatter from other people is really harmful.
Can we talk about the unspoken harmful thing in the office that nobody wants to bring up? And that's stop bringing your goddamn cakes to the office and leaving them on the table that you don't want to eat. Take them
Because
to
you don't
the
That's
want to
right.
eat it.
station, take them to the doctor's office.
Yep.
But you go to my office, there is all candy and food that people didn't want to take home because they didn't want to
Yep.
eat it all, and that they all just
Yep.
dump it on the conference room table. We got to knock
It's
that
so
out.
funny.
Yeah.
Everyone gets Christmas cookies as a gift, and then they take them
Hmm.
to the place they don't want them, or they re-gift them to
Hmm.
other
Hmm.
people. And it's like cookies must go to like 5 different households before they're actually consumed.
Yeah.
So I am 100% in favor of people bringing stuff to the office, but you should be willing to eat it.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be the person who brings in donuts and says, "Oh, I can't have one," or takes the
Oh,
little sliver of one with a knife, so nobody else is gonna
yeah.
want that one. And
It's so true.
don't bring the stuff you don't want at home because it's not good.
Right.
Like really cheap chocolate. No, just throw those out.
Yeah.
It's nobody wants to eat the terrible stuff. If you get a really nice box of something or you home bake some cookies or pie, bring that in. Share it with everybody. Sharing food is a huge way to build community and connections. It's great. It's important, but
I
100%.
don't
just
use
want
it.
to be clear, Thad. I'm not saying that if you want to bring us all donuts to be nice, that's fine. What I'm saying is, I don't want to eat these donuts. I don't want these donuts at my house. I'll just put it
Yeah,
in front of all my coworkers and hope that they all eat it. That's the thing I'm
Right.
complaining.
Yeah.
yeah.
Nicole, what has always been your solution when there's food that shouldn't be eaten
You
or that you
just
don't
throw it
want to eat?
away.
Yeah.
I mean, you just throw it
Nicole,
away. I
throw
mean,
it
the thing
away.
is, I always say this to my clients, like, you're not human garbage cans. Like, no one, like, this whole thing, this whole belief of like, oh, I gotta eat all the, no, you don't. You just throw it out. Like, it's not gonna hurt anybody's feelings. Like, you get to choose what you put in your body and what you don't. And I feel like it's very liberating to be like, these were not good. Trash, versus why should someone else have to eat those? And again, we're not being wasteful. It's like, I think, I can speak for myself here when I say I bake because I love baking. I think people bake because they love baking. It doesn't mean, though, that everybody has to eat all the things. Like, I'll bake things. My husband's were just like, did you forget to add something to that one? I'm like, okay, you don't like it? Great, throw it out. I don't care. I'm not attached to it. Like, I do it because I like it. It's fun. I enjoy it, but it doesn't mean we have to like eat all the things. So I just wish people would do that more often.
Yeah, if you don't
And
want
like you
the
said,
Christmas cookies.
instead of dumping it, taking it into the office dumping ground, it's like, again, this isn't the dump. This isn't where you take your trash. You handle that at home,
Unless you want to
please.
have a sense of community, like Thad was talking about, and like you're
Well,
going to also share in this
that's just it.
experience. Yeah.
But
But
people, but to your point, Scott, you're absolutely right. They're not bringing the good stuff. No, they're keeping that at home, or whatever. But it's kind of like, yeah, if you didn't make it with absolute love and care and whatever, yeah, forget about it. So
yeah.
I think the same can kind of go for, you know, professionals, um, like doctors and things. People bring gifts to them and it's nice and appreciative, but my dad was a veterinarian and, every now and then you get something amazing, but most of the time it was like a box of cheap chocolates. And it's nice that there's a wonderful feeling there, but there's so much of it, cards will do.
yes,
You
cards
only
are
need so
great.
many of those like 5-gallon things of popcorn.
Or even
Yeah,
like a heartfelt look them in the eye and tell them how much you appreciate them.
Yeah.
yeah. How
Absolutely.
That
about
means
that?
Words
more
go
than
a
giving
long
me
way.
some stupid shit you bought at Walmart,
Yes,
Oh yeah.
it's so true.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah, our
so
TJ Maxx on
true.
the sale rack that's triple sailed and like
Yeah.
probably been there for a couple years, like jelly beans that.
Oh, the gift of alcohol. People always give me
Right.
alcohol. They don't
Oh,
ask
I'm
me
on
if I'm
board
a
with that.
recovering alcoholic, but they just hand me alcohol. Here you go. Thank you very much. It's very weird.
Yeah. It's the gift of consumption for some reason, but I don't know. Anyway.
I'm like thinking about, I'm like, I have so much I want to say, and yet I don't know how to say it because you guys both are
Yeah.
absolutely right. And I'm trying to think of like, A, do I do that? Or like, how do you know who to do that? Like Scott, you mentioned alcohol, and it's like, yeah, people do that all the time. Even just going somewhere for
Right.
dinner, here's a bottle of wine or something like that. And it's like, why do we do that? Why is
Hmm.
that the choice? Why is
Yeah.
food and alcohol? Not that we need to buy people anything at all. And I think that that's probably more the message is, can we just accept this invitation to
Yes.
this holiday party or whatever
Yes.
and just go and say
Hmm.
thank you without, well, you're giving me a gift, so I got to give you a gift. And it reminds me of
Right.
that oh, what is that show with Sheldon and everyone who buys him something, he has to get them like the same cost. And so he gets gift baskets for everyone. And, but it has to be at the same cost of what they spent. And it was, obviously satire and everything, but it, you know, we do that. And I don't understand why.
I
Right.
think
I
some of
know.
us were raised to be told never to go to a house empty-handed.
Yeah.
Empty-handed. Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
like my
that's
my wife, when we go to a party, she always asks, "What are we bringing?" And we do.
Mm.
We should bring something, right? And then afterwards, then she's got to write a card, a thank you card to everybody that brought something to the party. So she has to write it
Mm.
down, and it's a whole thing that we could just eliminate, and I'd be okay with.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or,
agree.
I'm on board with the people who say, bring what you want to drink. Because then you're not putting this
Yes.
burden on them to
Yes.
put out an insane amount of money to, buy stuff for 30 people. Um, but then we have some friends we go to their house and they say that, and you bring, something over, and it never actually ends up getting opened. It just kind of moves to their collection.
Mhm.
So I don't need to bring anything. It never works.
Mhm.
I am also a big person with parties and social events, and around the holidays, I hear a lot of people I know ask, "Oh, what are we, going to do? How do we make everybody happy? Order pizzas. You do
Yeah.
not need a party. You can find some pizza or some side from a pizza place that will make everybody happy in some way. Keep it
Mhm.
easy and fun."
Right.
What I'm doing for Thanksgiving, Dad,
Oh,
Oh,
I
that's
would do a
awesome.
pizza.
private pizza.
Sure.
Are you really? That's
Fantastic.
amazing.
Well, my wife's out of town, and I have people coming for the turkey trot. So I have all
Oh
these
yeah.
coming from all over the world, and they're just
Yeah.
crashing at my house. So I'm buying pizza today. We're gonna
Yeah.
eat it
Perfect.
tomorrow.
That's
Love it.
amazing. Amazing.
Love
I
it.
love that. But you know what? Thanksgiving is not about the food, even though, a lot of
Mm-mm.
people find that it is. It's
Right.
about gathering together. It doesn't matter what you're eating. And I know from a generational standpoint, that's where some of my family members, older family members, are very much like, well, we need to go here for Christmas Day or have these foods on Christmas Day or on Thanksgiving. And I'm like, I can't get a reservation there. So we're here. And it's like, what? Like, we can't have this, genre of food. And you're
Yeah.
like, what does it matter? Isn't it about all of us being together? Like
Yeah.
it's very interesting how much value is put on the food and the drink.
Hmm.
Holidays have a
Whatever.
lot of tradition, and it's so the
Yeah.
the first year that I quit drinking. Now I grew up in a German family in Wisconsin. Okay, so they're setting the stage for you.
Oh, yeah.
First year I quit drinking, and people were happy I quit drinking. Some of my very, very drunk relatives were happy I quit drinking. I was in the family. Even my grandma was happy when I quit drinking. But the first Christmas at grandma's house, after I quit drinking, we walked in and she offered me a beer. And I said, I can't
Oh,
have beer because
jeez.
I quit
I
drinking.
forget.
And my grandma said, well, no, it's not the beer. It was the hard stuff, right? That's what the
Oh
problem.
my gosh,
No,
that's
no, grandma, I
hilarious.
can't drink beer. Okay, fine, fine, fine. And then when we got to dinner, we had the champagne toast.
Mhm.
She didn't understand why I couldn't have that.
Mhm.
We did a shot of Bailey's before we opened up the presents, and then the slush, which doesn't really count as alcohol, although it's like 50% brandy.
Right.
She didn't understand why I couldn't drink that. And then I was like,
Oh, that's
there's
funny.
like a 5 drink minimum at grandma's house.
Mhm.
Yeah, 5 drink minimum.
And I was only like 18 years old. How is this
Right,
even
right.
possible?
That's hilarious.
That's
Wow.
amazing. but you're
Yeah,
absolutely right. Generationally, culturally,
absolutely.
there's traditions, and Nicole and I both have that German background, and
Hmm.
they exist, and Germans are real tough to change.
Oh
Food and drink.
yeah.
Food and drink are huge.
Yeah. Yep.
Hmm.
But
Yep.
Are you in
it's one of the
Wisconsin
most
too, Nicole?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I grew up here too. My whole half of my family is German. The other half is Polish. Yeah.
You were Wapaka, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you grew up
Scott,
in
we
the
were
city,
more Milwaukee.
Milwaukee.
I
Yeah.
grew up in, yeah. Hmm.
So we had a lot of like Stollen and all this other stuff, and like you just think about all the things that are coming when Christmas is coming between
Yeah,
now and
Flammkuchen was
yeah.
every Christmas.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Hmm.
It's funny.
Totally. Dad, what were you saying?
I was gonna say, those food and those traditions are one of the most conservative parts of culture. And I mean, one of the ones that stick around the most because they are daily done, they're at home, they're not necessarily part of this public sphere where everybody's judging them or changing them. They are just consistent year to year and generation to generation.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
they are
I
things you
don't
think
even think
about.
I don't even think people think about it. Yeah, I think that it's just like, well, it's Christmas.
Right,
I got to make fudge. You're going to get the
right.
kringle. Like, there's all these things that we just do every year, and we
Yeah,
don't think, do we really need to do that? Do we need five
Well,
drinks at
right.
Christmas?
and
Agreed.
to your
Agreed.
point, we've got these food traditions where we're making all these things and expecting everyone who comes in our path to eat them, while at the same time telling that same person, how are you doing on losing that weight? You know what I mean? How are you doing on some new goals with yourself? And that's, I think, where it becomes so confusing for people is
Hmm.
everyone knows my goal is to, lose whatever amount of weight, right or wrong. That's a lot of people's goals. And yet everyone that knows this is here, eat this, eat this, eat this, eat
Hmm.
this. Here's the Kringle and the fudge and the Baileys and the this and whatever. And it's like you're not doing them any favors and yet judging them that they can't actually complete the goal. And that I
Right.
think is super damaging to so many people.
I think those traditions are also traps for your plan too. Where like I go to
Sabotages.
Christmas, I've been eating a certain way for a long time, and now I'm at Christmas, and now, boom, and now this is throwing me off my plan because I have to do all these things that we do.
Right.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah,
And I mean, I've had
definitely.
plenty of people in my life, clients, family, whomever, friends say, we're getting to October and it's like, the question starts to be, well, what's your plan for the new year? What races are you going to run? What are you going to do? And it's like, I just got to get through the holiday season. I'm not going to worry about this until I get through the holidays. Whether it be food or body or exercise related or not, everyone always seems to have to get through the holidays. And I think
Hmm.
until that changes, this idea that the holidays are stressful, the holidays are, I got to cook and do this and this and this and this and this, until it becomes more of like it's the holiday, it's self-care time, it's celebrate
Yeah.
time, it's happy time. There's always going to be this like grudge that's just around November, December, October, November, December, maybe January as well, where
Hmm. Hmm.
it becomes a survival, and
Right.
you can't really focus on yourself again,
Right.
right or wrong, to want to lose weight or not. It doesn't matter. So the beliefs around the holiday just, I think, are kind of yucky, like you were saying, with the traditions being so hard to
For sure.
change and all of that. So
Well, and I think people who have these ideas or are trying to take care of themselves, I think that they don't feel like they have a lot of power during this time of year,
mhm.
which is not true. But I do see that as happening too. Like, oh, I can't ask for what I need. I can't, do what I need. I have to do what all the people are doing.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, and I think the one thing that people should definitely take away from this is that whole idea that it's okay if you fall down on January 2, you can get back up again. It's
Mhm.
not. There's
Absolutely.
no magic. You don't have to wait till next New Year's to come up with a plan.
No.
You could just make
Right.
Yeah.
tomorrow New Year's again anytime you want.
Right. But I
Yeah.
think the other thing too, and Thad, you said this as well, is that, people forget that, again, you're human, right? So, you're going to need to reassess, and sometimes you need to reassess daily, weekly, every couple days. Like, how did that feel? Did that work? Like, there's something that's still not quite right about what I'm trying to do for myself. And, again, it's like, what are you trying to do for yourself? Hopefully, the foundation of whatever that is about taking care of yourself. How can I better take care of myself? this year maybe than I did last year, right? And what does that look? What does that look like? So,
Mhm. Right. Yeah, absolutely.
in wrapping things up, we always like to ask our participants what your favorite food is.
And
Because
card,
we're
Thad,
talking
you're
about
up.
all of the things. Like we know for sure it's not cheap chocolate.
No, I have a whole rant about Hershey's chocolate, but um, it's really hard. Um, it's I'm a huge fan of ice cream. Uh, so I mean, at one point, um, Annie, your husband Brian, asked me, what do you want after every race? And I think we were at like mile 60 of some race, and I said ice cream, and that has been the answer. And when we go somewhere, when my wife and I travel, that's usually what we try to find is like a local homemade ice cream
Nice.
place.
That's awesome.
Very easy when we go out to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Yes, so true.
Yeah.
So true. That's super
100%.
great. Ice cream
Mhm.
seems to be a fan for a lot of our guests, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Good
awesome.
one.
Cool.
When I think about my favorite food, I always think like, what's the last thing I would eat if they put me on the death
Yeah,
row? And
yeah.
it's the au pois burger from Elsa's on the Park. That's the
Oh,
number
wow.
one food that I crave. That I every time I go home, I want to eat one. It's either that or this goes back to childhood as well. The garlic bread from Mamma Mia's. Those are the
That's
two
Oh,
so
things.
wow.
good.
Yeah.
I could put
Yeah,
a picture of that on the internet, and 10 friends that grew up with me
well,
will say,
no.
you know exactly what it is and where
Yeah.
it's from.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
the
It's very
burger au poivre
distinct.
would be the first choice.
Yeah,
Elsa's
that's
is really
awesome.
good though too. That's a
Elsa's is good.
you saying a burger and like not like a McDonald's burger, like but like a good burger sounds so good right now, and it's 10:53 in the morning. Like, oh
It's
yeah, I could
awesome.
really eat one of those right now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's amazing. Very cool. I love it. I love it. Do you guys have any
So,
final thoughts for listeners?
I mean, I think don't waste the time you have with family or on break thinking about your diet or how much you should be doing. Enjoy it. Uh, if you're worried about what you're eating, have some cake. Don't eat the whole cake. And if you have some, you're not going to eat the whole one the next time. Like that's, I think, for me, a big thing is realizing I can have this some other day.
Mhm. Yeah,
of
food is
course,
available. Yeah.
Yeah,
all the time.
it's
Mhm.
very rare that there's something that is a once in a lifetime option.
Mhm.
Totally.
I guess on the
Mhm.
same vein as we're going to see people that, or see relatives, I would say, that especially now when everybody's divided and everybody's fighting with everybody, evaluate people based on how they would act if they came upon you drowning in a river, and if they would
Mhm.
jump in to save your life, who cares who they voted for or what their diet is or what
Yeah,
their politics are. If you're avoiding the holidays because of political issues or anything else like that, you might be making a big mistake, because you never know when those people are going to be gone. So just go eat
very
turkey with
true.
people that you don't agree with.
I love it. I love it.
That's amazing.
Yes. Well,
Very
that's
cool.
awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time today, guys. We super appreciate it. Everybody have a really, really happy new year.
Anytime. Oh, and I'm grateful for you and for your show and for the people that are listening. If you want to show that you're grateful, go to Patreon and donate like $1. Whatever the minimum. Like these girls are working hard. They're giving you the show. You're spending time listening to it. What else can you get in the world for like $1? But if everybody that listens gives $1, that helps sustain the show. So no one paid me to say this. I just say this as a podcaster, that it really means a lot when people say, I value this enough to give you $1 and to thank you for doing what you're doing. So
Thank
We
you.
Can I
appreciate
just
you,
get
comment
out
Scott.
from
there
my
with shows
perspective?
like this. So
Thank you.
support it.
Thank you,
Um,
Scott.
oh,
Super appreciate that. Yeah, it's
yeah,
really sweet.
seriously.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you.
So I'm gonna need
All
your
right,
address to
everybody.
send you a thank you note.
Yeah.
Just send me a cake of some kind.
Yes, perfect. I'm sure I have one left over.
Just give some cookies to us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, guys, you all take care, and all of our listeners, and we love you and Happy New Year.
Thank you.